How's it going, everybody? Thanks so much for joining. This is Noa Dalzell from Celtics Blog and CLNS Media. I'm here to give you an on-the-ground update from Celtics practice. This is NBA Finals Media Day, so another day where we talked to about 1 million people, heard from both coaches, heard from all the stars, all the bench players. So much to talk about, so much content, and hopefully this is an opportunity to answer some of your questions. I'm sure we're going to get some questions about Kristaps Porzingis. And I'm sure we're going to get some questions about his status for tomorrow. He's currently listed as questionable. We'll keep this to about 30 minutes. It's over. I'm seeing some negativity. I don't think it's over. I think there's plenty of reasons to still be optimistic, but certainly this was a tough update that I personally didn't really expect. I didn't expect him to have a tear and a dislocation and something that one of the reporters, Justin Turpin, was looking at that it looks like 34 people have had this injury, or something super unusual. I'm sure more people have had it, but just haven't reported it. But yeah, certainly that was a little bit of a surprise to get that email. We got that email right as Celtics availability were looking to begin. And obviously after the first 2 games that he had, it's super unfortunate that he's in position to potentially not play tomorrow, potentially not for the rest of the series. We really don't know at this point. So I'm going to give a little bit of an update to start, and then I'll be happy to answer some questions. So I don't know if he practiced. Also, I said I was going to wait on questions, but just seeing that, I don't know if he practiced. I think that he's in position right now where we really don't know if he is doing anything at all. We saw the first 30 minutes of practice. I did not see him. Other reporters saw him walking by. He didn't have a limp or anything like that. And so that's a good sign, I guess. But obviously the fact that this is a rare injury, Joe Mazzulla called it a serious injury, a lot to think about here. So just to kind of situate the context of where I'm at, I'm in the press room right now at the American Airlines Center in Dallas. We flew in last night and have spent most of the day here talking to players, coaches, etc., writing, recording, all that. There's just a handful of reporters still here. Most people have already kind of filed out by now. Media availabilities ended a couple of hours ago. And I'm just in a room. I'm not using a green screen. This is just a curtain, and then the arena is kind of right behind there. So just heard like some buzzer sounding about 30 minutes ago, and I think that was the actual end of Celtics practice. And I've explained this a couple of times, but just for people who are interested, the way that this works is effectively you have the podiums. So you have like the press rooms where the coaches speak and the stars speak. So Luka, Kyrie, Jalen, Jason Kidd, and Joe Mazzulla obviously speak in the press room. And then there's podiums kind of set throughout the basketball court itself, where you can have like Porzingis speaking at one, and so media will crowd there. And then there's also podiums for players like Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, and they're all happening at the same time. So you can't be everywhere at once. So I didn't have videos from all the pressers the way I normally like to, but and then the rest of the players that don't have like official media availabilities are just kind of walking around, sitting by the bench, and media can just go up to them and ask them questions. So it's very unusual. I feel like it's kind of more like old-fashioned journalism where you can just go up to players and ask them things, whereas during the regular season, usually you have to go through PR, you have to schedule interviews in advance. You can't just go up to someone and ask them questions. So that's part of what makes the finals coverage pretty cool. Spirits seemed high across the board. Everybody's happy to be up 2-0. They're happy to be here. I would say there's also a complete lack of complacency when it comes to this group. Like I totally feel like everybody understands that 2-0 doesn't really mean anything ultimately, and that you can blow that lead, and you can be, Drew Holiday was in position where he came back from being down 2-0. Being down 0-2 in 2021. Kyrie Irving was on the flip side of that. So it's only happened 5 times in NBA history where a team that was up 2-0 lost that series. I think it's 5. But Kyrie and Drew Holiday were a part of 2 of those. And so I think that creates a little bit more of a sense of urgency here. And so, yeah, that's kind of my brief update. Really appreciate people for tuning in. I will just say, if you can join, if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's Noa Dalzell NBA. That would be awesome. That way you can get notifications when these videos come out, doing them every day until the Celtics win their 18th championship. So I made that promise before the series started. Still stand by that. Still think it's going to happen in this series. Still think it's going to happen relatively soon. That being said, I will go live every day until a very long time from now if it doesn't happen this year. So in that case, I will start jumping up. I'll start answering some questions. Let's take a look. Starting at the top. Yeah, really appreciate those of you that have been regularly joining these. I'm happy they're helpful. Hopefully it's not too much blabbering, just kind of an informal thing. I'm not planning anything in advance. Someone asked, did he practice today? I'm not sure. We didn't see him practice in the first 30 minutes, but there was a couple of hours that we weren't available to watch. So I would imagine he probably didn't, just because of the fact that he just got this injury. I think Horford absolutely has a lot left in the tank. He's been getting 2 days off in between games. It's unfortunate that between games 3 and 4, it's the first time in the series that there's only 1 day off in between. I think we're probably going to see a little bit of Luke or Xavier or somebody if Horford doesn't play. And so if Porzingis doesn't play, so it's not going to all be on Horford. He can't play 48 minutes, obviously, but I do think he's going to carry a bulk of the load. That's for sure. Yeah, I think people are trying to figure out how worried they should be. The reality is, I said this from the beginning, I think this is a series that the Celtics can win without Porzingis. I also think that he has been really, really instrumental in the first 2 games that they did win. They're just about even with Dallas in minutes that he hasn't played, and they've outscored Dallas by, I think, 25 points in time that he has played. So he has been instrumental. He's changed the pace of the game. Game 1, first quarter, changed the game. I think there's a lot to be said about the Celtics' depth and the next man up mentality. Jaylen Brown talked about that today. Everybody expressed optimism that they'll be able to get this done with or without him, but also obviously that they felt bad that he's in this position. I thought his interview was pretty illuminating. He said he's optimistic, he'll die out there, but also Joe Mazzulla said that the decision to play or not play was not in his hands. It was in the medical staff's hands. So there's a very good chance that Porzingis is going to really want to play, but that he's just not going to have the choice. And they're already kind of framing it as that. And I think that means, if he doesn't play tomorrow, we'll know it wasn't his choice. It was the medical staff's decision ultimately. Touched on this briefly, but who will take KP's minutes if he can't play? I think we're going to see a lot more from Al. Al's been playing like less than 30 minutes in some of these games, really kind of splitting time with Porzingis. I think that changes. You see him go up towards more 40 minutes or so, which is unfortunate because I think he does better in those shorter stints. You probably see a little bit of Luke Cornett. That would be my guess as far as who do you trust in a finals matchup for a few minutes. I don't think you're going to see Xavier Tillman. Just the lack of experience there with this group. I think right now it's going to come down to trust and familiarity with the system, and that's going to be kind of a key factor. Again, yes, I think everybody's wondering the same thing. How does this change the rotation? Cornett, I see some people here are not happy about Cornett minutes. I wasn't shocked that they're listing KP as questionable. First of all, we were just talking about this with some of the reporters. There's no reason to rule him out altogether just from a gamesmanship standpoint. Like, why not make Dallas think he might be available, right? So that's the first thing I would say is that you just don't know. You don't know what the situation is going to be, and you don't know why they're listing him as questionable, if it's because they literally don't know or because they don't want Dallas to know whether or not to game plan for him. I would imagine we're going to find out moments before tip-off tomorrow. That's my guess. I don't think we're going to have any heads up on the situation with him. I don't know. I don't think we're going to have much more insight. I think we got everything we could today. Every player was asked about it. I asked Sam Hauser about it. He said he's going to do everything he can to be there. We all feel for him. That's all I know. Derek White said, he stays optimistic. He stays positive. I think everybody has praised him for the way he responds to injuries mentally. Like, he doesn't get down. He continues to work hard. He keeps everybody else encouraged. He stays locked in. And that's really important because obviously he's a very injury-prone player. There's not really a better way to say it. And so if every time he got a significant injury, he was so down and kind of checked out, I think it would really hurt the morale. And he doesn't act like that. I think he keeps everybody else light in these moments. And obviously you can't even think about how frustrated he must feel right now after having missed, 6 weeks due to a soleus strain. Now it's an injury on the opposite leg. I don't even really get what this injury is. I've seen doctors' takes on Twitter. Doesn't sound great, honestly. It doesn't sound like he'll be available to play from what I'm reading. But nobody ruled it out. He said he was optimistic that he'll be there tomorrow. So I don't know if this is just they're just trying to keep things interesting, or if there's something that we don't know, or if this is just a pain tolerance thing. I saw some doctors online say that this is something that requires surgery and that there's no chance he'll be back. So I don't know. It doesn't sound great overall, but I will say the general sentiment was optimistic, light. We're ready to do this. Hopefully he can be available tomorrow. That was a commonly expressed sentiment. Bill Simmons following me on Twitter. Yes, I was shocked that there was an NBA alert for that. I was thought that was a prank. I've never spoken to him, but I appreciate the follow. Yeah, the offensive and defensive numbers for the Celtics are very different when he's on the court and he's off the court. He's been one of the most important players on the team so far. So again, I'm not diminishing his potential absence, and I think he's instrumental for this team, particularly on the defensive end, honestly, but also he's been kind of like a cheat code offensively in a lot of ways. And so for me, it's just about the fact that I think without him, they can still get it done. It doesn't mean that they will be a cakewalk, right? But I don't think this group has played to its full potential yet in this finals run. I don't think Tatum has. I don't think the bench has. I think Pritchard and Hauser have more shots in them. I think Derek White is due for a big night. There's a lot of other people that can step up. That it doesn't have to be him, but he makes it easier, certainly. And he increases everybody's confidence in this team's ability to win. Is tomorrow a must win? I always want to say yes, but I don't think tomorrow is a must win. I think tomorrow, if you win, you put the series away, honestly. I mean, you never know. History can still be made, but nobody's ever come back from being down 3-0. This certainly has never happened in the finals. I don't think that this Mavs team has it in them to win 4 in a row against the Celtics. So winning tomorrow puts you in a really good position to just kind of deflate the Mavs and to kind of put them in a position where they're now down 0-3 against a historically good basketball team. And then also just with this Porzingis injury, if he's unavailable tomorrow and they can still get it done, I think it just provides a huge lift. But it's not a must win because you can lose tomorrow and win game 4 and you're still going home in a great position. So to me, I think if they can split these 2 games, they're in a good shape and then close it out at home in game 5. Obviously you hope that they can get each game done and kind of view it as its own entity, but I don't think you have to view game 3 when they're up 2-0 as with that much of a kind of importance, or I guess not importance, but I don't think it can be classified as a must win, I guess. 5 teams have blown 2-0 finals leads. The 2016 Warriors live in infamy. I think there's a lot of comparisons right now that can be made between the 2016 Warriors and this group, just as far as their regular season dominance, and then obviously being up in the finals. And I'm glad that there are these examples that the Celtics can look at to show that this can happen. And Kyrie Irving is a reminder of that because he talked about it today at the podium. He said, I've been here before. I was here in 2016. I'm expressing that confidence to my teammates. They know that, right? So this is not a group of guys that have never, nobody's ever been in the finals before. I think Kyrie's confidence in kind of what he experienced in 2016 is huge. And so that really stood out to me as something that they can be thinking about. And then Drew Holiday was on the other end of that. He was down 0-2 and the Bucks rattled off 4 wins in a row. And so you bet he's thinking about that in this moment. He's communicating that with his teammates. I don't think he brings up having won a championship all the time, but I do think that in this case, the fact that he was in that comeback, that 0-2 comeback, it's something you have to remember because he knows, I'm not going to get comfortable here because I know a 2-0 lead doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, and that's what enabled him to win his NBA championship, right? Who do I see getting more minutes? It was actually funny. I chatted with Brissett and with Xavier Tillman today, both for a while. I'll be posting clips from that interview later today or tomorrow. They both told me that the games that they've played during this playoff run, they had no idea they were going to play. So they had no idea. It wasn't like they got a heads up. They were sitting there and all of a sudden they're checking in. And Tillman told me that, I see this. I asked him about it, that he's always doing squats during the timeouts. He's always kind of in this position where he's making sure he's staying ready, staying fresh. And normally he's not checking in, but in the rare event that he is checking in, he has to be ready. Whereas Brissett was like, I'm just ready to go, kind of. I don't think he requires the same type of movement or just ability to stay fresh. But in any case, I don't think we're going to see much Brissett. I think if you want anything, you want a big. I said this earlier, but I do think Luke's the most likely candidate. I think the Mavs are going to have a game plan for both. It's part of why the Celtics are not going to say whether or not he's available, even if they did know for sure. The questionable creates an opportunity for them to really kind of express the fact that, you don't know what's going to happen, and therefore you can kind of prepare for both outcomes. It's similar to what they did with Luka. I think they knew Luka was going to play. In this case, I think it's more likely that Porzingis doesn't play, but why not make this ambiguous, right? And so that people are asking, why is he listed questionable? I think it's for this plan. It's for this very fact, if nothing else. But yeah, you never know. Maybe Porzingis, I don't want to say for sure he's not going to play. Maybe he shows up tomorrow and he's ready to go and he gives them something. Oh, interesting. Brian Sutterer is one of the most well-respected, most well-respected doctors that kind of comments on NBA injuries and things like that. And I see here Mike says that he did a long video explaining why there's a good chance that he plays. That's good news. I didn't know that. I'll check that out after this. I will say I've kind of maintained this from before when we were mostly talking about the soleus strain. I think a limited version of Porzingis that isn't moving well is probably worse than no Porzingis at all. So that's my only reservation. You don't want him to go out there and be hobbled around. That's when he can be exploited. And I think you just have enough depth on this roster to rely on other guys rather than a guy who's playing at like 30%. And I always lean in this direction. Like I thought Game 7 last year, Eastern Conference Finals, Tatum playing with his ankle sprain, like it's admirable. It's awesome that he's doing it. But my feeling about it was always that it was creating a situation where he's a liability. And unless you have no trust in other guys on the team, like you have to go with those guys. And so I felt like watching Game 7 last year, I was like, I just wish Tatum just checked out and they put someone else in and gave them a chance because he's struggling right now, just physically. And so I hope Porzingis, if he is so limited that he's unable to contribute, that they take him out. But again, it's all speculation at this point because we really don't know. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like there's a 2-game head start with this. If Porzingis after the series, at least he helps them get these two. I do think even if he doesn't play the rest of the way and they do win the championship, he will have been in a very important part of this run, despite the fact he really only played in like 3 playoff games. So again, it sucks that he's in this position. I can't imagine mentally how it feels, but I do think that he nonetheless played a really important role in getting those 2 wins, and hopefully they can get it done without him. Yeah, this doctor's awesome. Finals MVP, always a fun topic. I think it's really too early to say. I think Jaylen Brown, to me, has had an MVP-type playoff run, just as far as the way he set the tone on both ends. Offensively, super efficient. Obviously, Jason Tatum is just the one that is attracting so much of the attention. He's making life easier for Jaylen. He's making life easier for Drew Holiday, after having 26 points the other night. They asked him about it right after, like, what enabled you to be so effective? And he said, really, that it was the fact that Jason Tatum opens things up for him, right? So to me, there's a case to be made for all 3 of those guys. I'd probably lean Jaylen right now. But again, 2-game sample size. I'm sure it'll become more clear by the end of the series if they are able to pull this off. I thought it was pretty clear by the end of the Eastern Conference Finals that it was Jaylen after the way he closed out that game. But I don't think anybody on their team and the team cares right now. I think they're all just very much dialed in to winning a championship. Question about whether we're going to do a Boston media basketball game. We are. I think we're doing it on Thursday evening. So there'll be another media day on Thursday. We'll be in business to kind of be there and do that. And so, Amit, the CLNS producer, will probably have some footage. I'm going to try to keep my clean slate of mostly positive highlights. So I'm staying on Amit's good side over the next few days here. I talked to Keita today. He's awesome. He's a great guy, great player. He's one of the better shooters in the warm-ups. And, obviously guys that you would expect to be the best or like the best, like say Sam Hauser's probably the Derek White are 2 that stand out to me just as far as being great 3-point shooters in warm-ups. But Keita's up there. I would say he's better than most of the bench players, most of the like non-shooters as far as just his efficiency. So he's not going to play in the finals. I don't think that's really on the table, honestly, but I think in the future he'll have a role in this team and in this group. Okay, looking through these. Yeah, I think if you want to mentally prepare yourself for KP to be out, it's probably not a bad bet. But I think he's working right now and trying to see if there's a possibility here. This is another interesting point by Isaiah. Like, there's a possibility that, he doesn't play tomorrow, but he comes back later in the series if they need him. I think that's certainly something you think about. You're still in a pretty good position tomorrow, so you don't really want to put him in jeopardy if you can get up 3-0 without him, and then you definitely don't need him, or at least you shouldn't need him. So maybe they don't try him tomorrow, and if they lose tomorrow, they try him for Game 4, gives him a couple more days. I just don't know enough about this injury to know that if like a few more days of rest is it going to be that helpful too. That's the other thing. I really don't know. From what I've read, it's so rare that I'm sure the medical staff is very well versed that, they're as smart medically as they could possibly be. And I'm sure they're still reaching out to people trying to collect what they can about this type of injury. And it's 2 different things from what I understand, a tear and a dislocation. So a lot of confusion. Literally the email hit our inboxes right before the media availabilities began. And so we didn't even have time to like Google it. It was like Sam Hauser walked into the podium right as I just posted the tweet. So again, yeah, kind of a weird one, kind of a weird situation that this happened. I didn't think it was going to be something like this based off the fact that Joe Mazzulla said 0 concern, based off the fact that he said, I'll die out there. I don't know. I thought he was going to be good to go. I was surprised if this was something so specific, and it sounds like he was surprised too. Like he didn't think it was going to be something this substantial. So just unfortunate. And they said their injuries are unrelated, and I think they probably are. But at the same time, you come back from something, you've been out for 6 weeks, you're not in game shape, you're favoring maybe your other leg. It's the opposite leg where this happened. And that makes sense to me just from having played basketball and having suffered injuries. I feel like a lot of times it's the other leg that you're kind of overcompensating with. So again, a lot of speculation here. I wish I had something more concrete. The only thing I know is that he was walking without a limp. So that's not a bad sign. Okay, I see I'm about 13 minutes behind in questions. I'm going to try to scroll down here and catch up. A lot of comments, a lot of questions about Porzingis. I think we've covered most of these. Yeah, someone said it might require surgery. I've seen that. I don't know anything about the validity of that. Someone asked about Hauser. I think I talked to Hauser about this today. He was kind of sharing about how he feels great. They're up 2-0. That's kind of where he's at mentally. And I also think that he's opening things up for other guys like Jaylen Brown. And so that to me is a great point, that just his presence on the court creates spacing and creates driving lanes for other players. And then obviously when he hits them, you have to react even more to him. But I think he's the kind of shooter that even if he's missed his last few, you're not living with an open Hauser 3. You're really not. And so you're going to compensate. You're going to kind of play him tightly. And he kind of talked about that today. I have not seen the national updates from Malika and Woj and Shams. I haven't seen each of their specific takes. I've just been on Twitter and then obviously here talking to people. I do think this is there's so many conflicting reports, so many conflicting statements. The only thing I would say is that it sounds like one of those things where they're not going to play it safe. I think they're going to play him if they're able to. So, hey, if it's a pain tolerance thing that will need surgery after the finals, then I think we'll see him tomorrow, if that's the claim. But again, this is all speculation right now. Seems like a lot of you have done a lot more research about this already. People have been on the grind looking into this Porzingis injury. Am I surprised that the Celtics are underdogs on the road? It's honestly just funny. It's surprising anytime you see them be underdogs, just because they've been so heavily favored during this entire playoff run and this entire year. And honestly, the last few years, I feel like every single Celtics game they're favored to win. But again, Dallas has been really good, and Dallas has been good at home. And especially now with that Porzingis, it makes sense. I don't know if they're actually favored, if that makes sense. I know betting lines say that, but I don't know if you ask people around in this press room, who do you think is going to win. Probably pretty split, but I don't know how the betting lines, I know, sometimes have their own formula for them as well. I think the Celtics are. I had the Celtics winning in 6. I had them. I think they'll probably split these two games at this point. So we'll see. Okay, someone's asking about if it could lead to a catastrophic injury. I think I've been talking about this for a while, so I'll try to go down the Porzingis stuff, but I think he's probably not going to play. That's just my intuition. But again, there's 1,000 people countless people that know way more about this than I do. Okay, some non-Porzingis questions. Let's say I'm going to skip every Porzingis question moving forward because I feel like we talked about this as much as we could. But biggest concern for me is just that the Mavs get hot, because they really haven't been so far. Kyrie mentioned this in his presser today. Their biggest issue has been scoring. He feels good with the looks that they've been getting. I think he's been missing easy ones, as have his role player teammates. And so the idea that they are getting hot, that they could get hot right now and have a Miami Heat game 2, a Cavs game 2 type game, is the biggest challenge I think that they could have. And then obviously the Celtics could get a lot hotter. They didn't shoot well last game, right? So that's where you kind of look at that as a potentially good thing. I'm going to pause just to say, if you're watching this on Twitter or otherwise, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Noa Dalzell NBA, or you can Google search live from the NBA Finals with Noa Dalzell. This is being streamed in both CLNS and also my personal YouTube channel. So just pinging that. I'm going to be posting some exclusive interviews with Xavier Tillman and O'Shea Brissett later today. And so you can find that on my YouTube channel. Someone is asking if you would switch Drew Holiday on Luka and Jaylen Brown on Kyrie. I like what they've done so far, honestly. So I don't know that you have to necessarily make any substantive changes, but honestly, with the amount of switching that happens with this team, it's pretty much interchangeable. I like Jaylen Brown and Kyrie. There was one clip that I posted that went pretty viral. House of Highlights posted it. It was just my vantage point of Jaylen Brown locking up Kyrie, and I think just his size and his strength and his quickness he's just a good matchup for it. But he's also been doing a good job on Luka, relatively speaking. Scrolling through some of these. See a lot of Porzingis questions. Luckily, I think I covered most of these. Someone asked, is Cornette even available? Definitely. He's available. Nobody else is on their injury report, I believe, outside of him. I have seen this, that Jason Tatum loves game threes. I know he mentioned that last series. He's had a lot of big game threes in his career. A lot of talk right now about his efficiency. I'm sure he's doing everything he can to be out there and be able to help offensively, and not just from a playmaking standpoint, but from a scoring standpoint as well. So certainly, I don't sports bet, but I would predict that Jason Tatum is going to have a good game tomorrow. So if you do, that's my 2 cents. I feel like I've been pretty good with predictions so far during this playoff run. That's my prediction. Regardless of the outcome, I think that Tatum's going to have a big game tomorrow. Okay, great question from Kate. Did Peyton Pritchard check himself in during game 2? What's the story behind that buzzer beater? So this is a great question because, as some of you know, I'm a huge Peyton Pritchard fan. I think just the way that he plays, the emotion that he plays with, just the intensity, the way he's so ready to go kind of at all times. He was asked that today by Chris Forsberg at his media availability at the podium, and I posted a clip of it on my Twitter, but he didn't check himself in. Like, he didn't go to the scores table, but he did tell Charles Lee and Joe Mazzulla, like, kind of was like, hey, like, pinged that he wanted to go in. And I think kind of like reminded them that he was ready to go in, given the circumstance. I think it was the kind of possession where he knew that they would want him out there. And so he was kind of like, I guess you could say that I checked myself in, but it wasn't like he was just like, screw you guys, and went into the game. Which I know has happened for players over the years, and that always becomes a big media story. I don't think it was one of those. I think he just kind of knew the situation and the time and the context, and knew that he wanted to go, they would want him to check in as well. And so he said, I think I earned that right. I thought that was pretty funny that he said that. But the story of that buzzer beater is that he's been practicing these shots all year. He's been taking them all year, and he's, I think, top 4 in the league as far as hitting shots at the end of buzzers, at the end of quarters like that. Taylor Snow had the exact statistic. But yeah, this is not a one-off. This has been a pattern of his, something that he's really made sure to do and to really kind of hone in on. Okay, scrolling down these again, I'm skipping all the KP ones just because I think we've talked about it as much as we could. Question about Jaden Springer. I just don't think at this point you throw somebody in that hasn't played this entire playoff run. The guys that are like X factors that you could see are O'Shea Brissett and Xavier Tillman and Luke Cornette. Outside of those guys, I would be really surprised if you see anybody else play, just because why wouldn't they have played to this point? Like, you're not going to throw that wrinkle in at this moment without any sort of heads up. That's just my perspective on it. Again, I could be wrong, but I talked to Jaden Springer today. He talked about how great the culture is here, how much he loves it here. It's different from other places he's played at. I tried to not ask specifically about Philadelphia because I didn't want him to think I was trying to like get him. But obviously that's the only other place that he's played, and he made clear that this was one of those things that this is just a very special place. He said everybody's always in a good mood. I thought that was a funny line. Okay, continuing to go down here. Question about trading away KP. It's really hard to think about that right now. This is his first year. He had a relatively healthy season. I think maybe you look at next year, you see how next year goes. Maybe he has a healthy year next year. Maybe he has another injury-prone year, and you start to think about this is not a guy you can work with long-term. I think they've loved his fit. They've loved his culture fit, his on-court fit. So I think they're going to do everything they can to make it work with him and make this happen. That being said, everything's on the table. I didn't think they were going to trade Marcus Smart. So you never know. I think Brad Stevens is always going to do the best thing that he thinks for the team. But at this point, I think it's hard to even think about just because they're in the middle of the final series. He might be available tomorrow. And he did have a relatively healthy season until this point. And you have to think about how much of it is a coincidence, how much of it is not. Obviously, I think also with just the Celtics have a headliner of starters that are so resilient. I don't want to jinx it, but like Tatum has never missed a playoff game. That's insane. 7 years. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, like these guys are always available. And so it only accentuates the fact that he's struggled with injuries. Another comment here about Drew Holiday. I think Drew Holiday is going to continue to capitalize on being in the dunker spot, kind of playing kind of a big role in the offense, feeding off of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't think they're going to make any substantial changes. I think they're going to keep guarding them how they've been guarding them. I'm surprised because to me, the worst thing you can do is make Tatum a playmaker. I think that's when the Celtics are at their best. So I love watching it. I loved watching game 2, and I loved watching the way that he exploited the defense, even though he struggled. I think that it just opens things up for other guys, and I love seeing Jrue Holiday get easy looks. I think it's great for the team. And so, yeah, I think he could definitely have another big game. See, my mom's here. She's asking about which team will be able to hold up better in a long, draining playoffs. I think the Celtics are more well rested. They haven't had as long series. I think they haven't struggled outside of Porzingis really with many injuries. The question is really Luka on the Mavericks side and how he's doing. He said he feels good today, but he did not specify in whether he said I don't want to give any other details outside of that. Never listening to Joe again. I'm assuming this is in reference to Joe saying zero concern. I will say Joe is not very helpful on injuries, so I don't bother asking Joe. I think he just says, like, no idea, I haven't seen him, I have no clue. He speaks in kind of hyperbole when it comes to these things. I think the zero concern was another one of those hyperbole, and he probably shouldn't have said it, but it definitely was a little bit misleading in this case. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know that that was the case. Someone here said KP said he will die out there. He doubled down on that today. He said, I will die out there if I need to, but the key is that it's not his choice. Joe said that today. It's the medical staff decision. So it provides KP with a little bit of cover in case he doesn't play, but I don't think it's going to come down to his decision. I think it's going to be either he's clear to play or he's not clear to play. I worried about Tatum's jumper. I think that his shooting struggles during this postseason, it's kind of remarkable that they've been able to succeed as effectively as they have been able to without him. And so certainly, yeah, it sucks that he's struggling like that because it opens things up for him and for the team when he's shooting well. But I don't view it as something that is like a long-term concern. I think he's in a phase right now, the same as Sam Hauser. A lot of you guys ask about this all the time. I think it's one of those things that, he's just going to snap out of it just the same way that he did last year's playoff run where he couldn't buy a basket in game 6 versus the 76ers, and in game 7 he didn't even hit the rim of everything was going in, right? So just one of those things. He's played basketball for a long time. I'm sure he would like to fix his shooting woes, and right now he's just kind of impatient and waiting for them to be fixed. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding this correctly, but I would imagine you're asking, are people obsessed with scoring? Like, I do think that everybody wants them to see him score 35 points, 40 points, rather than have these kind of more well-rounded games. So I do think that this is highlighting that the NBA media, the NBA fan base, Twitter, everybody just wants to see points. And if they're not seeing that, they're not seeing efficient shooting, they're not able to really understand the nuance of what they're watching a lot of times. So Joe Mazzulla talked about this often. He talked about it today with a Brazilian reporter. His video is worth checking out. I'll also say if you want to watch full interviews from today, they're all posted on CLNS Media, so you can check this out. You can watch all the conversations. There's even some that I haven't seen yet because I wasn't at all the pressers at the same time, so would highly recommend you check those out if you would like to. If you're curious about that, and again, I'll ping Lisa. You can check out all my daily updates, Q&A. I'll be going live again tomorrow, pregame, live on my YouTube channel, which is called Live from the NBA Finals with Noa Dalzell. Same as my Twitter handle. Question about who do I trust the most to bring the ball down in the crunch. I think they've each had their moments, and there's advantages to each. I really trust Derek White's decision making down the stretch, so he's maybe my pick. But I also think Tatum just collapses so much attention. So if he's being a playmaker, the way that like when he hit Al Horford versus the Pacers game where he drove and threw that behind the back pass, like if he's thinking pass first, I think he might be the best bet. But Derek's probably up there as well. I really like the Derek White KP 2-man game, and so if you're able to. Obviously we don't know if KP is going to be around, but I think certainly he's been huge. He's been like instrumental down the stretch during the regular season. I would say he was one of the most clutch players on the team and just got to the free throw line. He's been kind of a cheat code for them. Okay, I'm going to wrap up in like 2 minutes here. So just looking through here, who checked out when Pritchard checked in? That was Jrue Holiday. He had just picked up his 3rd foul, so I think it was like actually good timing anyways. I don't think we're going to see Al and X together at the same time. I think we saw that kind of for limited stretches during this playoff run. We're not going to see Cornette shoot any threes. I did not know it was Jrue Holiday's birthday. Happy early birthday, Jrue Holiday. Okay, I'm just going to try to rapid fire some of these. Who's more upset right now? I think the Bucks. Obviously, they feel like they had to make that trade. But if you see Jrue Holiday help lift the Celtics to to a championship. I mean, that is like, imagine watching Marcus Smart push the 76ers to a title and like being one of the most important players in that playoff run. I think the Celtics fan base would be sick. Celtics fan base, I think, like was okay this year. A lot of people that are big Marcus Smart fans, they were okay because he didn't even really play this year. But I think people would really struggle with that. So scrolling through here. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up shortly. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'll be posting more clips from today on Twitter. I'll also have some stories for Celtics blog later today, tomorrow. A lot more coverage to come. If I know anything more about Porzingis, I'll definitely share it. But I'm assuming that at this point it's going to be a lot of speculation, and it's going to be a lot of people talking to doctors and medical experts and all that. So who's to say, who's to know? Obviously, you hope that he's available to play, but you really don't know at this point. Yeah, really appreciate everybody. I'm trying to find this comment so I can hide it. Hide current comment. There we go. I'm still new on the StreamYard grind. But yeah, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'll be going live tomorrow pregame, I think 3:30, 4:30 Eastern time. So like 4 hours before tip off, but I'll post the exact time when I know. It just depends on when I can find a room and all that. So thanks everybody. I see a lot of you have some of these names I'm starting to recognize from being in the last few. So really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, evening. Enjoy the rest of the coverage. And yeah, subscribe, like, comment. Appreciate all that. Thank you.